Well, there's a few thank yous that I know David particularly wanted to make. One was to Norman, because Norman did all the proofreading on this, and he did it as a favour, well, to us really. So Norman, great appreciation for your very professional work, and also for your friendship.
Thanks, Bruce. That's all right. I don't want thank you.
No.
Who's this?
I'm not that one.
No. Oh, well, that's different.
Yeah, that's different.
And when December comes, I'll take that across and get David to sign it for you.
Lovely job.
I
Thanks.
told you not to buy one.
No, he didn't. He nicked it.
That's quite appropriate. David very much wanted to thank Chris for being a partner in crime in this, and it was very helpful to have you on the ground, Chris,
so he looks like a partner.
Great knowledge of the town and of the people and of the history and the thinking that's gone on beforehand. So thank you very much for that. The other thank you that David wanted me to convey was the thank you to the people of Bungay, because what he found was when he started to ask questions about this, people just welcomed him with open arms, and they said, yes, come in, you know, we'll tell you all about it, we'll tell you all about Dr. Leonard Kane, we'll tell you about his daughter. He interviewed people who were there at the time, people who had memories of things, memories of what people said. Not 1577, I might add, but at the time that Leonard Kane made such an impact on this town, and who was so influential in the way that we perceive the Black Dog today. The story for David really started quite a long time ago when he wrote his first book, which is called The Sign of the Witch. What David was intrigued by was when he started to look into the witch burnings, which was his primary focus, about 7 or 8 years ago now, and resulted in the book The Sign of the Witch. What got to him was that this term witch was being used in one place to mean something entirely specific to the community, the culture, the events that were happening at that time, the people who actually took on the term. In another place, it was being used in an entirely different way. And yet, when people used the term witch, they basically had in mind one image. And then he got further intrigued to find out that across the world, the same word was being used for people who had an entirely different function in their cultures, like, for instance, witch doctors, who had nothing to do with the witches of Europe. When you think about the diversity that happens in this country from village to village even now, with modern communication and transport systems that we've got, imagine what it was like a few hundred years ago when the witch burnings were happening. Imagine the difference between what would be happening in East Anglia and what would be happening in Scandinavia or France. And yet people think of it as though one thing's happening. What David unearthed was that entirely different things were happening. What he found was that in some places a witch was a very friendly person who was loved by everybody and was healing people with the use of herbs and love and care and a bit of intuition. In another place, a witch might be a cranky old biddy who was bad-mouthing everybody. In another place, she was somebody who'd stolen someone's husband. In another place, she'd gotten the wrong side of the clergy or the local doctors. So there was all sorts of reasons, and they varied from place to place. He did all the research on that book by reading secondary sources, basically by reading what other people had written. He came over here to visit us, and he heard the story about the Black Dog of Bungay. And David, in his very scholarly manner, he's a doctor of anthropology, said, wow, how cool is that? And he got really interested. And it started to dawn on his mind, here's a chance to explore a legend, to explore a word, to explore an idea, but to do it firsthand, to do it where there are people there who remember when it became the symbol of the town, because it wasn't always. And he got intrigued. How is it that an event that happens in 1577, one event, in which 2 people died. How does that come to be the symbol of a town that sits on the town crest, that stands above the town pump? You know, Black Dog looking out over Bungay along with Our Lady of Justice over the Buttercross. How does it get from there to there? Why does it come from a place like this in 1577 that's torn apart by Protestant, Catholic toing and froing, the altar taken out, the altar put back, the altar defaced, the altar repaired, all the stresses that are going on there. And then Abraham Fleming in London. Why is he writing in London? What's going on there? And then how does it come to be part of the legend of the town from a bloke who'd obviously never been to the town? His track in London, and yet it becomes part of the legend. It disappears. For centuries it basically disappears, sort of sits there, sort of in the background of people's minds. And then, in 1800, at the time when all the folklorists are chasing around for stories of pre-Christian pagan pasts, it emerges again. And then it gets picked up by this lady, Theodora Brown, who comes and makes a really detailed study. And there's boxes of stuff by Theodora Brown over in the University of Exeter. And when Ballarat University funded David, another thank you to Ballarat University, when they funded for David to come over and explore this, we went over there and spent these days, me sitting there, typing documents out, and David Trope, here's another one, Dad, I want that one copied too. It was great fun. And then reading in the margins of one of these documents, handwritten, Theodora Brown, what on earth are these sightings? And then the confusion between the event of the Black Dog of St Mary's Church and Black Shuck, the confusion in people's minds of those 2 images. And then disappears again, and then in 1932, an incredible bloke called Dr. Leonard Kane becomes the town reeve. And suddenly, the story of the Black Dog of Bungay rises, elevates in the consciousness of the people.